thank you for having me, first of all. But by way of starting to talk about my writing, and especially the book we are going to talk about, Forced to Grow, people should, the audience, don't feel shy to stop me at any moment. Raise your hand, say you want to say something. I am very, very open to being interrupted. It will not bother me at all. I wish I had asked to get your questions before we started, but I didn't do it. I want to start with poem. Where are you? I write everything. I don't write novels only. I don't write for children only. I even have a book of poetry from which I am going to read a very short poem, because it kind of lays the ground for me for what we're going to be talking about. It's all of 2, 4, 6 very beginning lines, very small lines. Being, because it pleases our Maker, we have no choice in the fashion of our making. The sentence for our being is choice in the manner of our living. What has that got to do with writing, with reading? Whether you're going to read a book or not, whether you're going to be a reader at all, is a choice you make. Reading for human beings is critical. For children, the importance of reading to children, with children, for children, cannot be overemphasized. Science now tells us that children learn words long before they are born. Long before you see them, hold them in your arms, cuddle them, kiss them, love them, they already know words. Which is why I applaud this group, because the invitation stipulated that these are parents who meet and read or discuss books. If parents read, children will read. Children fashion themselves after their role models. The first and most important role model in the life of a child is, of course, the parent or caregiver. So parents who read are doing what every parent the world over should be reading. I didn't know that when I was having children, but now we know better. I don't know how to force people to do what is good for them. Reading is important because it informs the life of the child. There is a poem I wrote. I'm not going to read it to you. My book of poetry is called Please Take Photographs. You can find a poem there that's called Why I Write. Why I write is just to leave footprints, to say this is what I saw, what I experienced, what I know. That's my truth. It's not your truth. Everybody has a story to tell. All our stories are important. Read, read, read. And perhaps, if you have that inclination, also write. Now, specifically, why did I write? Forced to grow. Forced to grow is part 2 of my autobiography. It's a book written by me about me. Autobiography. Now, in that poem, I have not read to you why I write. One of the intentions I profess to have in writing, and I mentioned that in the poem, is that children who look like me in this part of the world, in the whole continent of Africa, and perhaps elsewhere in the diaspora too, can grow up having seen someone who looks like them write, and also come to think they could write. Now I've expanded that. I write for any child or grown up to look at me and think, well, there's somebody who looks very ordinary, who comes from an ordinary background. I don't come from wealthy parents. My parents were far from wealthy. They were not educated. That's what I try to show through my writing, that your place or position of birth does not have to determine where you end. You were born poor, your parents were poor, or whatever. You don't have to end there. Life is about marching forward. How do you do that? Choice. The most important thing I hope I will convey through looking at forced to grow is that choice is a crucial element in life and living. Forced to grow. Part 2 of the Magona autobiography. I'm going to look at the chapter headings and really ask you to consider, just for a split second, what that means. For me, what it could mean for anybody in a similar situation. Excuse me. Chapter 1 is 23 and already a gooi weg. A gooi weg is something you no longer need, that has become useless, utterly useless, cannot be salvaged. So you gooi it weg, you throw it away. In the townships, when I was growing up, in my teens and early 20s, that phrase caught on, it became very popular. To look at someone who had fallen on hard times, especially if that had not been indicated earlier in that life. 23, I was a primary school teacher. For me to be a gooi weg at 23, do you think that was a happy spot? For a teacher to become a gooi weg, something very bad has happened. When that happened, I did not immediately recognize that I had made myself that Hooiberg. I did not take, look at it and say, that's my fault. I blamed everybody else except myself. It was the government, the apartheid government, that denied me all kinds of help and all kinds of facilities. It was my husband who had run away, leaving me pregnant with child number 3. I'm 23, remember? Pregnant. This is not the first or the second child. The Department of Bantu Education, but also the other department, all, white education, color, it didn't matter. The education system then didn't, you couldn't be pregnant and unmarried and teach. You are a bad example. So I'd lost my job with the first pregnancy. By the time I was pregnant with the last one, the third baby, I was working as a domestic worker. And my husband had done me the favor of going to the woman I worked for, my madam. I'm 4 months pregnant. He doesn't tell me he won't come back. He goes to her behind my back and said, my husband, my wife is pregnant, and she gets, she gets the children via C-section. In other words, I couldn't give birth the normal, natural way. I had to be operated on. My pelvis didn't expand. He uses that to tell the white woman he does not want his wife working. At the end of the month, she must tell me no more. He leaves on the 26th. He's coming back on the 16th. Doesn't tell me he's terminated my employment. When I get my pay, the woman gives me an extra one, says, I know I should give you some notice, but because you also didn't tell, blah, 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 blah. To cut a long story short, and 4 days after he left, I also get to know I've lost my job. This chapter starts with that in my growing up, nothing had prepared me for that kind of situation. For me, a woman was abandoned. It was always a woman's fault. And I believe that then. I don't now. Don't get me wrong. Either she'd been unfaithful or she was exceedingly lazy or blah, 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 blah. It was always the wife was to blame. I knew I wasn't to blame. There I'd been working as a teacher. Here I'm working as a domestic worker. He left. I struggled. The story of how 5 months later, Sandile, my late son, was born, and how I negotiated those last 5 months and the months that followed until Sandile was 6 months old, when my life changed for the better. Why do I tell that story? It's a story I tell because it shows the highs and lows and how my life changed. The blaming didn't change. What made a great change in my life, the right stop or step, was when I realized that nothing about the blaming was changing anything. And I looked deep down into myself, into my very soul. I was very angry at the government, my husband, the community, because our community, when I was growing up, Amatos, children are loved Oh, amaXhosa love children, but you dare not be the mother of children when you don't have a husband. There are names for such women. ngesiXhosa. I knew that my name was dirt among my people. And I just couldn't see how I was to blame. I am left with the burden of raising children single-handed. But I'm the one who's the laughing stock. I began to see tradition in a different way. The saying that it's the, if you wear you feel the pinch if you are the wearer of the shoe. I had not realized how women were ill-treated by society, including family, friends, neighbors. People laugh at you when you become a hoiver. When my son was 6 months old, we were struggling. I could no longer work as a dom. I lost that way. I sold fed cook and ginger beer and skapkop because I didn't have the clothes for the child to be born. I didn't have the money for the train fare to go to the clinic, prenatal clinic. But when I look back at my life, the man who abandoned me, he's late now. I got to thank God that he had done that, because it forced me to the realization that my choices, the choices I had made, led to that situation. And that for me was the beginning or the turning point in my life. Hello? I thought somebody was saying something. That was the turning point. No life is ever going to change without that. The person whose life must change has to change, or who wishes that their life could change takes action. And that action will not come until the person realizes that they are responsible for the situation in which they are in. Even when that situation is imposed on them, you are the master of your own life, the mistress of your own life. Your life is yours to manage. You make the choices that take you where you want to be. That is why reading for children is so crucial, because children, through the stories, learn what choices imply, learn to know if you make bad choices, you cannot expect, or good results will not come. They get to do the connection between choice, action, and outcome, whether good or bad. Choice, action, and outcome. And that's how stories are written or told. Traditionally, we told stories verbally. Chapter 2 is it's up to me. When that moment came, it was a revelation. My baby is about December, couple of months, October, November, 3 months old. And friends invite me to go, Boxing Day, New Year's Day, go to the beach in Muizenberg. That was what was done then. I have no money. I can't pay the taxi fare, the bus fare. We'll pay for you. They know my situation. Even the shoes I was wearing, not sandals. Somebody took stole their sister, borrowed their sister's younger sister's shoes without their permission, so I could look halfway decent. The dress I was wearing, somebody else gave it to me on loan for the day. I went. My mother, poor darling, agreed to look after the baby. She could see how desperate my situation was. I went to the beach. My life changed that day. The chapter is called It's Up to Me. It is up to me. The bathing costume I was wearing, which wasn't mine, get in, I swim or I splash around. I'm not really a swimmer. And suddenly, I feel the wedding ring slip from my finger. I grasp. I used to play netball. I caught it right there. I caught it. I clasped. Then I stood still and asked myself silently, not saying a word. In my mind, the question came. Yes, I caught it. What the heck? Did I bother? What is the meaning of this ring? Till death do us part. But the person who gave me the ring is no longer around. Why am I clinging to this silly ring? Very calmly, very deliberately, I opened the palm of my fingers, uncurled. I didn't throw no. I just simply, I had clasped it. It was right there in the palm of my hand. I just went and I felt it slip away into the ocean. And I stood there, surprised at myself. I'm a hoarder. I don't throw things away. That here was, okay, a cheap gold ring. But for me, it wasn't cheap then. Not the way I perceived things. Why did I do that? That's when my life unfurled right before my eyes, my closed eyes. I stood there, closed my eyes, thinking about the meaning of the action I had just taken, deliberately throwing my ring away. In a sense, I didn't throw it away, but I was letting go. That's when I realized that I was letting go of someone who had already let go of me. And blaming him wasn't changing my life. Blaming him was less than useless. He didn't care. If he cared, he would not have done what he did. Then I went to, just like the government. What makes me think the apartheid government cares that I say bad things about it? I think it's nasty. The community, everybody has their problems. Why should they care about me? And if they scanner about me, why do I care? My job was minding the children I had stupidly come to have. I realized and took responsibility for the bad choices I had made. Having children when you are ill prepared for them. No savings, no house, no anything. That's why I was struggling. I couldn't blame the children. Blaming my husband was less than stupid. From accepting responsibility for my situation, what followed was the realization that no one was going to change anything for me. I needed to change things. What did I want? What kind of life did I want? What I knew with no, without any question was that having been given the little, I didn't think it was little, then I thought it was a big education. Having been given the education by my semi-literate parents, I owed it to my children to do a little better for them. I had to give them as much as I had, and perhaps, God willing, go a step further. That's what is called progress. My parents from nothing had given me a little bit. I needed to give my children a bit more. Each generation should progress step by step. Upward mobility is made of that. I knew I owed my children a huge apology, but the responsibility was mine to unearth them from the poverty into which I had dumped them. I had grown up poor, but we always had some food in the house. I can't say the same for my children and I. That year, the first year of being abandoned. Then from there, I had to come to, okay, I want a better life. I want to have a good job. I want to have enough money to pay rent. How am I going to do it? It's good to make, to dream your life, to dream anew. But then the next thing is challenge yourself, because that dream isn't going to, you don't go to bed and dream a new life and you wake up and it's there. You need to say, this is what I want. Then ask yourself, how do I get there? The how is crucial. The answer for me was very easy. It was true then. It is true today. Out of poverty, there's only one definite way. If you don't win the lotto, education. Which brings me back to what we are discussing. Children of parents who read. Children whose parents read to them, read with them, read for them, and even ask them perhaps to read for them in turn. Those children get their minds sharpened and sharpened because through reading, their vocabulary expands. But more than that, they learn more than words. They learn new concepts and other worlds. The child's world is very intimate and immediate. It is parents and her cradle or bed, her bedroom or home. Little by little, that world, the newborn's world, every day expands. Unfortunately, for children of the poor, that expansion is terrible, unhealthy, poisonous, dangerous, evil, because they see nothing you would wish on any child. Born into poverty, what can they see? But they see what they see. And that's how they grow. That's the only way every child grows, through what they see, they learn and emulate. role modeling. So reading helps to disturb that, to disrupt that. Even the child who is born into extremely unsavory circumstances can have her world expanded through reading, because they get to see there is another way of living, different, perhaps even better to what they experience on a daily basis. That is the work of books and reading. That is the work of what writers do, what storytellers do, what caring teachers do, what loving parents do. Read, 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 and encourage reading. There is no better gift you could give your child than the gift of love of reading, love of books, love of venturing into that unknown world and gobbling it, drinking it, because that goes into their very being. And our children, all children, need that expansion, bit by bit, moment by moment, day by day. They grow their world through reading. How did my reading, my education, I decided I needed an education. My mother had a saying which helped me when I was making my decisions. Education, that's chapter 3, the husband who will never leave you. I remembered my mother's words. Okay, I had not minded those words as a teen, but now that I had fallen on hard times, I remembered those words, and that helped me towards making decisions. So even parents who can read or don't read, storytelling, and the manner in which conversations at home are carried on, it's important that we are mindful as grown-ups. That's another way of reading. When you talk among yourselves as grown-ups, remember that you are an essential part of this growing person. The words out of your mouth should always be healthy words, words of love, words of honor, words of kindness, because the little one is drinking those words in. You know the saying, to those who have spouses or partners, the way you treat each other is a lesson to the young people growing under your care. You are role modeling for them what love means, what marriage means, what partnership means, what parenting means. We are saddened that our young people are having babies like it's getting out of fashion, going out of fashion. But most of these are young people who come from such families themselves. Why then are we surprised? I'm not blaming, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, let's be honest. What children see is what children will do. Unless the parent, having made a mistake, as I did, then confronts the mistake and is honest with her children and says, I love you, my kids, but I made a mistake. I should have waited till I was better situated, readier, more ready to give you the kind of life you deserve. Honesty is the best policy. So I embarked on education, and our situation then was such that I had to do my education by correspondence. When the baby was 6 months, I was fortunate, I got a teaching position. I had made a promise to myself. Remember, I'd taken a stand. I was going to improve my life. I wanted a better life. When I got that post, I went back, sat down and wrote down, now I have a job. What does that mean for my goals? It meant two things. Enroll in a course of study so that you get a matric. Black or Bantu teachers could teach with JC and a 2-year teacher certificate. That was the high qualification I so prided myself in. That's how I did my matric over 2 years through Damelin College. And then I did A-levels, London University, correspondence. And then I did UNISA and got my BA. But the first thing I did after when I got the post was to promise myself I was going to be a conscientious teacher. I would never be late. I would never be absent unless I was so ill I had to be absent. I taught in that school for 2 years. The second year, we had a staff meeting, and there was something I had to take one of the kids to the clinic for something, the inoculation of something, I can't remember. And they had wanted the parent to be there. So when I told the principal, I taught 1 year, January to December. Midway in the second year, I say, I have to take one of the children. What children? I said, one of mine. The principal nearly dropped dead. Mistress, you have children. I had never used my children as an excuse for lateness. I had written down, I am going to school, I am going to work for these children. They can never be a stumbling. I can never use them and say, oh, I'm late because I must make sure I make arrangements so that they are well looked after and I am free to go, because I do that for them. If I jeopardize that situation, who will suffer? They will suffer. I will suffer too, because when they suffer, you suffer as a parent. So I said, I'm only doing this because I had to go and sign something. So you make your promise to yourself, you make the steps you have to take, and then you try your best to adhere to that program. That's how I became the person I was forced to grow, as the title of the book said, forced to grow. That's how I grew my life from destitution. As a child, we were poor. We didn't know that. But in my early 20s, we got to be destitute, my children and I. From poverty, I had plunged down to destitution. But that day at the beach, when I told myself, The government, my husband, and the neighbors, they don't matter. I am in charge of my life. And I got so sure of what I was going to do for myself and the children. I came up with the saying, despite the government, in spite of the government, to spite the government, I will be something. I will be somebody. I had made up my mind to climb out of the dustbin into which I had thrown my life. And I had given up. I denounced the government. There was no government. The apartheid government didn't care for me. And I had to care for me to show that government, okay, you think I'm nobody, I will be somebody. My husband, I didn't care about. He could go to Honolulu. I would be somebody. I didn't even, bother. I thought to myself, let me mind my children, care for them. This whole book then is about that. Why I write is my way of giving motivational talks. You can't talk to everybody, but through writing, the hope and prayer is that young people or parents could read forced to grow, discuss it with their young, especially preteens to teens or young adults, so that where there seems to be a link, it may not be having 3 children before you're 25, it may be other missteps. You can say, how does your life correspond here? How does it differ? And even those people who have done well, no life is perfect. No life is so good, it cannot be improved. Long after I thought I was like, I had achieved, I went after my BA. When I started studying, we formed groups, study groups in the township. I remember a time when we in our study groups used to say, if I get this matric, when I introduce myself, I will say, Sindiwe Magona, matriculant. People did that those days. There were not so many matriculants. And then when we were doing UNISA, so many people we knew had tried and tried and tried and never gone through and graduated. And these were bright people. So we persevered. We had help. Fortunately, there was an organization that helped people like me who were studying by correspondence, the South African Committee for Higher Education. Why we don't have them back, I do not know. So you get your tutorials by correspondence. They help you here in wherever you are. There was a branch in Cape Town and Johannesburg or Pretoria, somewhere there. And you went to their offices and they hired a whole house and you had tutorials, which meant whatever you didn't understand through the books, the pamphlets you got from UNISA, you could discuss this with a real life person from the University of Cape Town. That helped. But help comes to people who go and find it. That's the other thing that's important for people trying to remake their lives. Make your decisions, take the steps, map out the steps, go and seek help. We are here as a nation, as humanity, to help one another. It's called Ubuntu. You do unto others as you would it was done unto you. That's called help. I need help today, but I can give help Two, because of what I am, who I am, what I have. Somebody else could need that. But I need help too. I mustn't be too proud or stupid or silly to ask for help. Asking for help is never sinful. It is never unwise. What is unwise is knowing you need help and being either scared or vain or uncaring of yourself to ask for it. These are the things through writing books such as Forced to Grow. I hope if it is in a school, at the library, there's a discussion. Those are the questions, discussion points that can be raised. How are we doing for time? I think I've been going on forever, like an hour.
It's been wonderful talking to you, but it is 8:25, so if people are wanting to ask questions, maybe we
Yes,
should
that's why I'm thinking perhaps I should stop. I'll go quickly in case you didn't see the book or haven't, you know, I do correspondence by candlelight, and you know, my brother does not understand my suffering. You know, sexism exists even within families. And I point out all the steps I took until the book ends with me getting a scholarship to do a master's degree at Columbia University in New York. My return and what that meant, I'm back here with my master's and I'm struggling. Then I get called. I'd applied for a job at the United Nations. Bye-bye, South Africa. I am gone for 20 years, working at United Nations headquarters in New York. From the beginning of the book, I was a has-been at the age of 23. To the end, I am living. I have a master's degree. I'm going to work for the UN in New York. That's a rounded story. It's mine, but it can be yours too. It's any story. Take charge of your life. Never give up. Thank you.
Dr. Magona, that was fantastic. I found your story very inspiring for me personally and for everyone. And
the book is better. The book is better.
and I think that what you had to say about the importance of reading for children is also so important, that it gives children this opportunity to see the possibilities and to learn to make those choices that are so important for their lives. So
expand their horizons, please.
Expand their horizons beyond their current world to what there is possible for them.
Yes.
So thank you very much. I'm sure we're going to have some questions here.
Or comments. I welcome comments.
Comments, yes. I personally would like to hear a little bit more about what books you've done for small children. You know, we are from a preschool, so my interest is with those sort of under sixes.
Okay, go to Magona Media. That's where all the books are. Magona Media.
Okay.
Yes, I have more than 150 children's books, including Inzomi, folk tales, and then other, you know, books.
And are those also stories
and other books that just come out of imagination and things like that.
Okay. So you haven't done any books about your childhood?
No, I haven't. You know, the struggle for writers here, you know, in South Africa is that children's books need, the publishers want children's books that will be used in schools, especially if you try to write them in the indigenous languages, which is really something. write them and they must fit caps and they must, children's books should be riotous, should be funny, and should have facts, and should be totally, totally honest. Children, to my way of seeing things, children's books should help the parents who perhaps for whatever reason find it difficult to talk about certain issues. The children's book should say those things because they are honest. And nothing about our bodies, for instance, is ompeskof. Nothing. Where we learn to be ashamed of this body and to say, oh, everything must be called by another name. Until when? Until when? When the child is 20, they already have children. Then you don't have, never mind. That was, you got me started there.
I can see we need you back for another
I am so desperate that I want to publish. I have children's books I want to publish, but they don't conform to the books that the Department of Education, early or whatever, wants. I'm not writing for the department. I'm writing for the child. I'm thinking if I could just self-publish, I don't know how to do it. I need help.
We wish we could give you the help to get those books published, because they would be wonderful books. Oh dear. I see we have a comment there from Mapaseka. I will buy your non-conforming books if you publish in the next 5 years while my children are young. So,
You've got it. You've got it.
We hope so. Oh dear.
That's why I had tried to get one manuscript to you so that people could read and give me feedback. I like feedback, yes. If you think that's the kind of book you would read for your child, hey. Or if you think of a book you'd like, suggest it.
Okay.
I'm retired now. All I do is write. That's my favorite pastime.
And I think, would you enlarge a bit? You mentioned storytelling for the children. What would you recommend to parents as far as storytelling goes?
Tell stories. Tell the stories you were told as a child, or if you were not told stories, go to the library, read them and tell them. Make your own stories. You know so much. You can't, honestly, well, I understand that too. I am like that. We limit ourselves. We think we can't. You can. Your baby believes everything. Go and read a story and retell it. Read mine and retell it. Change it here and there, doesn't matter. As long as the child is amused and laughs. Tell a story about your child. If she is now 4, tell a story of when she was 2. Give her another name. Don't tell her it's her story. Tell it as it is.
And the other thing,
if her name is Josephine, say Esther, when Esther was 2, and tell the story that made you laugh when she was 2. That's the story, or better still, tell it to me to write it.
Lovely. I see Nobantu says, why don't you think of self-publishing some of the books?
I want to, but I'm a tech klutz. I don't know how to do it.
Oh, Nobantu, you'll have to help a little bit here then.
Thank you, Nobantu. I hope she knows how to do it.
I'm sure she does. I know.
Okay. Nobantu. Okay, I'll wait to hear from you soon.
The other thing I really felt, I think because it rings so true with me, is the importance of conversations with children.
Yes. That's another way of reading. Conversations are the same as reading. You are giving words, you are giving ideas, you are sharing things about the principles of life. When the 2 grown-ups or 4 are conversing, the kids are learning how life is lived. Oh, so-and-so lost their child. Oh my golly, how are they dealing? Empathy. The child is learning. You can even call it, dear husband or whatever. I am so happy to see that you show so much empathy for your brother. The child is learning vocabulary. Even if you don't call it empathy, they just get the gist of it. Converse. Children shouldn't grow up where people are so angry they don't talk. There's no conversation. I mean, when you see, I talk, I give stories like that, even in, where parents are eating and they're grumbling. What are you saying to the kids? Make a happy home. You have kids now, strive to be happy in your home. You owe it to the kids.
Absolutely. And that's not a TV screen. It's talking to them, actually talking to the children, just watching a screen together. I think so important. Anyway, I see Nabantu says she'll be in touch with you.
Oh, so thank you. I look forward to it.
Contact you. I will give her your details.
Please do. Thanks.
I hope that we have lots of books coming out for our little ones as well.
Oh, you are going to.
Wonderful. Okay. Is there anyone else?
I honestly have 4 almost ready. I mean,
Wonderful.
4 ready. Yes.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. Okay. I think if the Irmgard has to go, I think we need to close the meeting, but thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I absolutely enjoyed it in retrospect. I was so scared, but never mind. That's who I am.
I don't know why you were scared. We want you back
I get
again.
nervous. I get nervous. What will I say? What will I say? They say what you wrote about.
No, I think...
Also that means anybody, we are all scared.
I think
you must just dare to do.
Message. Yeah.
Dare to do the things you're scared to do.
Lovely.
Thank you. And good night to everybody.
Good
Those
night,
are
everyone.
safe trip back home.
Thank you so much. I loved it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do have questions, but I'll later.
Email it. I will answer.
I do, yes.
Okay,
on a teacher's perspective. I'll ask
please do.
your email.
Please, I welcome that. I want to learn from teachers.
I want to learn from you.
When you learn from me, I'll be learning. Because when I learn what you are learning from me, I'm learning.
Oh, that's lovely.
You.
Perfect.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye.